Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Grid Talk podcast. For once, I haven't hidden Wajid away straight away. He is here, so welcome in. How are you, Wajid?
I'm good, my friend. I'm good. Here to talk about if you watched the last sort of half an hour of the Austrian Grand Prix, it was a classic. The first 50 laps, it's like watching England.
I was going to say, I was about to say we've turned up unlike England for 96 minutes. I've just got to mention, I know we're not a football podcast, but seeing Bellingham equalise in the 95th minute, but then Kane's goal was in the 91st, is really confusing.
It's a mind F, isn't it? It really is.
It is terrible. But welcome everybody to Grid Talk podcast. We're obviously talking about the huge elephant in the room. Yes, how did Nico Hülkenberg finish ahead of Sergio Perez? We don't know. But no, we're not going to be talking about, well, we will be talking about that because obviously it was a great story. But obviously we've got to start with it as it is. If you are, as always, if you're watching and you haven't seen the Grand Prix, you don't want any spoilers, while you're watching a Grand Prix review, there's the result. Spoiled. Anyway, it's been an interesting weekend of racing. We had let's start with the qualifying, general, normal qualifying results. Not much really there to write home about. Max on pole, Lando second, George Russell out qualifying Lewis Hamilton, and pigs don't fly. And Sergio Perez actually making Q3. Well done.
The only sort of takeaway was Oscar's lap getting taken away after qualifying and finish, which...
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one because I get what they're saying, and I think the gravel traps did work this weekend. Don't get me wrong.
Absolutely.
But I don't get Oscar turning around and saying, because we will get onto white lines in a minute. Trust me, we will. But in terms of Oscar going, oh, well, the gravel was there. It should have just been put closer. No, you're still over the white line, Oscar. Whether you're here, Jeddah, Silverstone, wherever it may be, you are still over the white line. It means you are not in position to... You're taking advantage.
Except in Paul Ricard.
Oh, yeah, Paul Ricard, we just make our own tracks as we go along.
Yeah.
But that is definitely how it goes. If you've got any opinions on stuff that we talk about as you go along, feel free to pop them into the chat. We are live on YouTube and we are live on Twitch, which Lee has grip fuel. Hi, Lee. Sharks with lasers, track limit problem solved. I've never seen a shark with a laser. I've seen a Tuscan Raider with a gun, but that was in a film.
So we've been playing too much Horizon Forbidden West. That's a great idea, though.
Anyway, yeah, not a lot from qualifying. Not even any surprises, to be honest.
No.
It was all kind of how it was. We go to the sprint. Yes, excited for a few laps, but then obviously we'll talk about when we talk about people, we'll talk about the sprints as well. But in terms of a sprint, again, 3 or 4 laps of excitement. As you were. Don't want to damage your car. Don't want to spoil things. Then we go to a race. This is not how long the podcast is going to be. It's short. Nothing happened for the first God knows how long. Now, honestly, we've had a few incidents first, but obviously it was just an incident. First things first, Wajid, before we get on to the actual situation with 2 drivers at the top of the championship, is this whole thing, yes, we had Andrea Stella saying, look back, things weren't penalised or whatever, but are we looking at an incident that was made far bigger just because it was Max and Lando? Because in all grand scheme of things, if you look at what's previously happened when Max has been fighting for championships, the incidents have been far bigger. I know it made Lando retire and all that, but the actual incident was hardly anything.
No, it was hardly anything. But I said this sort of. I'm gonna sound like a Lewis Hamilton fanboy. Don't care. It is bigger because it's Lando. Anytime there was an incident with Lewis and Max, it was it's just hard racing. You can't penalize hard racing, etc., etc., etc. There was no cause of Max. There was nothing about calling Max's driving into question because people were comparing Max's will to win to Ayrton Senna's at the time. But as soon as it's the fresh British kid who might challenge Max, who might challenge the three-time world champion who's dominated the series for the last 2 years. Now all of a sudden we've got to question his driving, his etiquette, whether it was fair. It's bull, and it's total BS. Like Max has always driven like this since he entered the formula. Excuse me, has always driven like this since he entered the formula. It's not a big deal because it shouldn't be a big deal because the babyface kid is now involved. Max should have been called up on these incidences a long time ago. A long time ago. And if something's been deemed fair for how long has Max been in the sport now? 8 years, 7 years, 8 years?
Something like that,
yeah. If something's been deemed fair for that long, what's the issue? What's the issue now? Deal with it. It was just a racing incident. Deal with
it. We will talk about. Sorry, just somebody asked me to send them the link. Anyway, we will talk about a couple of other penalties that came up first. First up, we had the incident which was Carlos Sainz and
Lewis Hamilton.
Lewis at turn 1. What was your general opinion on that? Well, did they make the right decision just swapping them back?
No, because he's driven them off the road. There's been incidents at turn 1 at Austria that have happened for years and years and years. No one's ever mentioned, no one's ever batted an eyelid. And now all of a sudden we've got to swap positions. Why? He was ahead of him at the apex at the start of turn 1. And then all of a sudden, the FIA getting involved, and I think what Mercedes did was precautionary rather than. I think they got ahead of the curve, and I believe Dave has gone. Fair, so I will just keep talking. But no, it's again we're at this position yet again where we're talking about what the FIA, their penalty incidences and things like that, and the up and down nature. There's no consistency. There's no consistency week to week to week, and we're here again. Like, why is this week's marking so much harsher than we've had previous? As Dave says, he's on his way back. So as soon as he gets in, we'll bring him back in. But please do let us know in the comments what you feel about sort of the penalties and the incidents. The turn 1 incident with Sainz and Hamilton. Like I said, I'm very staunch on that. I believe that I believe he shouldn't have had to swap. I believe he shouldn't have had to swap places. I don't know what there was to investigate. And when Dave gets back, I'll ask him about his opinion. But I guess moving on to the next penalty, Fernando, good old Fernando. What is going on with Fernando and that and that Aston Martin? Just it's the same cycle with Fernando, isn't it? It's all love, celebration, hugs, kisses, high fives. Let's go around to each other's house and eat food and drink Spanish wine and have a great time. But slowly but surely, the upgrades don't come in. The car starts to drop in performance. You get that little petulance over the radio. We should be sorting ourselves out. We shouldn't be focusing on anyone else. But here we are now. A stupid incident where he's lunged into a driver in a corner he wasn't making. As we have Mr. Magpie back. Hey.
I'm not. I don't know what's going on with my internet. I don't even know. Can somebody tell me if the stream has even kept going? Because I hope it has.
Well, it still says. Well, on mine it still says live in the corner, so I hope so.
If not, he's been talking to himself.
Yeah.
Let me just see. We're back on Twitch, and we are, and you've been talking to yourself on YouTube, so we should be back on. I apologise about that, everybody. But that's the third time today my internet's gone off. So what I've done is I've set up my 5G, and hopefully, weirdly enough, I've put my computer onto airplane mode, and it now works. Work that one out. Anyway,
so I've sort of waffled on. I don't think about the subjectivity and the consistency of the FIA's decision making. I said the Lewis and Sainz incident shouldn't be looked at. So you might as well give your opinion on it whilst I was waffling away.
Well, yes, I am back. Hello, everybody. The internet. Yeah. So in terms of the Carlos one and Lewis. While it was a first corner thing, Lewis did enter the corner behind Carlos. So I kind of think it's a thing that I just think it's not an issue. It was the right thing to do. Don't apply a penalty. Just say to Mercedes, look, swap them around. And I think that's why Lewis stopped attacking George, because he was going to have to hold up George, and they're discussing whether we're going to have to give the position back. So they went, okay, we don't give it back. So, or we do give it back, shall we say. We also have had comments of better internet. Brian. I've got better internet than him. You
say that, but I'm not dipping in and out.
Yeah. The fact that Stroll has a new contract shows the standards are not currently applicable. Yeah, I get it. But no, I think they called that absolutely right. We've had to stop this thing at starts for Grand Prix of going, oh, well, if that happened in a race situation, like later on in a race, I get it. Lewis had to run wide. But in all fairness, Carlos made him have to run wide. And I get both sides of it, but I think it was called correctly myself.
If that happens at Silverstone 10, 1, 2, 3, and some people are running off wide and then coming back and cutting in and getting a run, guarantee that doesn't get called. And if that doesn't get called, here we are again. And that's my point. That was the point I was making, which is, it's the consistency. It is.
Oh, there's no consistency. There's as much consistency as the England football team. No,
that's consistent. That's consistently shite.
Fair. Thank you, everybody who's joined in. I mean, it's great to actually have some viewers, even if I am dropping in. That's probably why it's holding up the viewership, because I'm not here. In terms of the next one I referred to was the Alonso one, because that's the one I can remember off the top of my head. Well, we had the Alonso one where he drove in, but we also had a similar one in the sprint where Hulkenberg got a penalty for doing a similar move on Alonso, but actually not colliding as such. So we'll go with the Alonso one in the race first. What was your view on that?
No, I just think we're at that Fernando stage of the relationship where you can see the relationship is deteriorating. Sky were making all the excuses. Oh, he's lost his fight. If he's lost his fight, get off the grid. Yeah. Simple as. Like, no, it is no one else's fault but Fernando's that he's chosen to burn every single relationship on the grid with all the top teams. Like I said, we went through the stage where everything was hunky dory, and it's hugs, kisses, pilers, and wine every single weekend. Now we're at the stage where he's complaining of the radio. Oh, well, don't think about anyone else. We should only be thinking about ourselves. Half-assing drives. It's a poor maneuver. Deserve the penalty. And if he's lost the fight, like I said, look for employment somewhere else, because I guarantee there's a million other people that would happily take that drive for far less money than Fernando Alonso's on. I don't have the sympathy and the concern and the oh my god, Fernando needs to win. I could care less.
Yeah,
half,
true.
Yeah, but half the grid don't complain the way he does either.
Yeah, going off that incident in a race, it was just lazy by Alonso, sort of half-hearted. He was always going to run into him. But then also going back to that sprint one where Alonso obviously got ran off the track by Hulkenberg, I kind of don't think that was a penalty either. Sorry, that wasn't a penalty, whereas the other one was, because it caused contact and, Joe was further around the corner than Alonso was with the Hulkenberg one. And if we're going to start penalising somebody, like in the sprint, which is all about pushing the car to the limit and trying to make overtakes and be exciting, which it never is.
Allegedly. It is allegedly about that.
Yeah. Hulkenberg tried to move, locked his brakes, still stayed on the track, and yet he gets a penalty. It makes no sense in my book. But you're not all here for that. And I'm really tempted to leave this bit till the end just to be awkward. But no, we're not going to. We're going to move on to
we can't risk the viewership. Don't do that.
Yeah, so we're going to have a look first. And I'm going to keep us in frame because I don't normally do that. But we we want that one's a good view. We want that view so we can actually see what's going on. So for everybody who doesn't know, let's move that banner out of the way. For everybody who doesn't know, spoiler alert, Lando and Max collided. But this was down. Let me just check. If I press that button, it was lap 55. I hope you guys can still hear us. Let me just try something just to make sure, because oh, hello. Picked up myself. Picked up Wajid. But then we want to go to the back.
We are still here, ladies and gentlemen. You are not watching highlights of Austria. Unfortunately.
So you can probably hear us now. So that's good. So there's us. And this is us with the instance as well. Let me know if you can't hear us, because that wouldn't be a very good podcast. No, you can hear us. That's all right. Why don't you just say something? Make sure I can hear
you. Yo hablo español.
Yeah, we can hear you. So as you can see here, this is lap 55. And we had the incident of the movement. This was, dare I say it, the worst part of it for me.
So just to add context for people who may not have watched the race, Max had been 7 seconds ahead before the second round of pit stops. Yeah. The Red Bull team made an uncharacteristic mistake in the pits where they were slow to change, I believe, the right rear tire. Left rear tire. Thank you. I was getting my left and rights mixed up. And essentially, Lando came out roughly around a second and a bit behind Max because they both pitted on the same lap. Lando proceeded to drive closer and closer up to Max, where he got into his DRS zone. He attempted an overtake on the previous lap, where Max seemed to have moved under the braking zone. Again, it was a bit half-assed by Lando, and which has now led us to this point at lap 55. Just to add context in case people didn't watch the race.
And if you didn't watch the race and you're going to fast forward to lap 55,
that's pretty much.
Let's just remove it. I don't know why there's spirit level in the background before anybody asks. I haven't got a clue. Right. So as you can see, there is a clear racing line for both of the drivers. What I'm going to do is we're going to analyse each incident that happened, go through our opinions on it, and then a final result of whether it was right or wrong, what penalty it should be, if it is a penalty, etc., etc. So the first one.
Sorry, and please do get involved in the comments if you
Yes.
disagree with any of our breakdown and things like that.
Well, if you disagree or agree, but I know there's some strong comments last night anyway. But so here down into it, you can see Lando perfectly. This was before he's moved. So we move on to the next slide. And I was going to play these as videos, but I didn't know what YouTube would do about it. So that's why we're playing it safe. You can see Lando has started to move out to make either an overtake or a dummy overtake as such. I'm not sure which. And I don't know why there's this little bit down in the track which looks like the graphics have completely failed. But anyway, there we go. It disappears. So Lando makes that move. Looks like there's a post in the track. So Lando's made the move. Max has still not moved at this stage. He's still there. And then on the next one, you can see he started to move out from the track. Now, the problem with this is not the movement. Like, he's only moved a little bit. Lando still has a bit further. But it's how deep into the zone it is. I mean, the marker board the next two, I think, is the 50-meter board or 50.
No, it's the 50. That's the 50 because the one before that is the 100.
It's 100. So they've already started braking. It's uphill, so you brake later anyway. And then Lando has another choice to move across. Now, moving across, I don't know if anybody has ever tried to brake a car, especially a Formula car, into a corner. It is, especially when you're turning, it's really difficult not to lock up. So he's still going straight at this stage and then decides, because he's seen Max come across, he moves across to the outside to get a run out of the corner. Now, that's obviously all fine. There's a blank one there because I wanted to split up the incident. So that is the first one, and actually the worst one for me because he moves so late. I mean, he hasn't moved from the racing line at about 75 meters from the corner, 75, 80 meters from the corner. So it looks like he's going to break straight and then keep on racing line. Lando, obviously thinking that, has tried to go to the inside, whether he's braking late enough or not. So for me, going off the previous rules, which we go back to 2021, and before that, when these were made because of Max Verstappen, because of his braking moves under braking. This is where I think a penalty should have been applied, which goes before Norris's track limit penalty. Not that it matters when they're applied. It should be one. Yourself, Wajid?
No, absolutely. The rules are very, very clear when it comes to moving under braking, which is once the car starts braking, and if there's a car that has made a move under braking, you cannot move you cannot move late at the braking point in any way, shape, or form. That is the rule. That is the flat iron rule, as David said. That's the rule that was made because of Max Verstappen. It is literally the Max Verstappen rule, and yet it does not get implemented. Make it make sense.
Yeah, it's certainly one which I think majority of us, and if you're in chat, let us know what you think. But while I get defending and I get it's a reactive movement. If he had made that move before Lando made the move, it's on the car in front to make his decision first of where he's going. And then if Lando makes that move to take the overtake, you have to sit there and go, no, I'm not going to do that. So it's certainly something which I think needed to be addressed pretty quickly, even if it was just a message to Max saying, you've moved once in the braking area. We don't think it's right. It's not caused anything. Lando hasn't lost loads of time due to it or anything like that. Calm it down. Don't do it again. That's your warning. Shouldn't be getting warnings, but I can see where the FIA might go with that. So we'll move on to hi, Jimmy, in the chat. Thank you for coming in. We're going to move on to the next. Was it the next lap? I just want to double check this. Lap 59, because Lando had to rebuild the gap. And you can see I picked this shot first because it was the best one I could get in terms of seeing that both cars are staying on the racing line. And let's be honest, there is a gap. It's about 40 to 45 meters between the cars. So a huge gap between the cars. And then, as you can see, still not moved. Max is definitely looking in his mirror right now. And you can see Lando is about to pop his nose out from behind the Red Bull. Obviously, the slipstream up this hill with our DRS is crazy. Then, on the next move, you can see Lando very sharply has jutted out to make an overtake. Max still looking to the right. So if you can see anything in the mirrors, which I've never driven an F1 car, so I wouldn't know, he would be able to know that Lando's made that move. You would see a flash of papaya, orange, whatever, in the background to know that he's moved. So Max knows he's made this move. Next up, Max has come to turn into the corner. Lando, again, is now on the inside of the corner. And then locks up his brakes as the hill very steeply climbs in that corner. That's just the way the corner runs. So being on the outside is quite good in terms of getting the run out the corner. And because he's locked up, he's had to straighten his wheel. You can see Max has had to straighten his wheel to avoid. And then off goes Lando Norris. And that is as clear as day, unlike the Hulkenberg one, where the Hulkenberg one was Hulkenberg stayed off the track, and in this case, Verstappen went off and tried to keep his position by going off. This one, Lando is clear as day, gone off the track. Verstappen's done nothing wrong in terms of moving, and he stayed on the track. So 100%, as you will see now, as we get down to the next corner, Lando Norris has relieved the position to Max Verstappen. Roger?
Lando got track limits for this. I think you've also forgotten to mention that he got a track limits violation for this as well, which I don't know why, because what else is he? He's locked up. He's gone wide. He's giving the position back. He's not gained an advantage. So this track limit call felt ridiculous anyway. But no, totally agree with. And there's nothing really to add to what you've said really. Again, but it's just if Max is punished for what he does on lap 55, we don't have what happens on lap 59.
Very true. I do agree with that, and it's and I want to thank everybody who's just come into a chat, because you've come in at a brilliant time. To be fair, as you can see, Lando is off the track. He's made the mistake. We can see a comment from Little Sailboat 19 off Twitch. It's all relative. They all do it and push boundaries as they should. Yes, exactly. And Sydney saying it's consistency that we want. That's exactly true. So in this case, Lando's made the mistake. He's gone off the track, unlike Hulkenberg did, and he's been told, yes, you've already used up your track limits. So this being a track limit penalty. I mean, for me, he avoided an accident. Could you have let this one go? Yeah, because he let Max back through. That was a whole point. The whole point of not having gravel tracks is one, safety. But the other point that was always thrown in was if a car spins, it can recover and stay in the race, and we can have less retirement, so we have more cars on the track, which seems to be a massive thing in Formula One. Little Sailboat is just saying that it wasn't this that received track limits, but I have the information from the FIA website and that it was.
Because it was. This is the one that was investigated whether he was going to get the penalty or not.
Yeah.
It
was. They got, because we know this is the one, because if it was anything else on the track limits, I'm just going to try and snooze the ads because Twitch was going to play them. So apologies for that. In terms of if it was any other track limit, they wouldn't be investigating. They would just go, you've had your 3 warnings. Here's your fourth. That's your penalty. But we don't investigate it. Whereas this is a bit like, do we give one because he's tried to attempt an overtake? So they had to go take it to the stewards to investigate it. And me being in a chat with a few people when this was happening, we all said, why do we need to know when it's being noted, investigated, and then a penalty? Just tell us if there's a penalty. We don't need to know whether it's being investigated or whatever. It brings the suspense to the race as well. So 100% here, and we've hardly ever said this on the show, but Max did absolutely nothing wrong, and Lando made a mistake. He dive bombed, which we will get onto a little bit later on because I've got a bit of a bugbear with Christian Horner about that one. But then we moved on, and this was onto lap 63. And lap 63 is not where it all happened. Sorry, I was checking with myself there. We're still not there. This is the third incident we had. This was from the rear of Max's corner. You can see everybody is taking the racing line as normal. And then still in the zone of the 150 to 100 meter board, everyone is still on the racing line. Max is slightly away from the curb. Fair dues, but, you know, it is what it is. But Lando's close enough that if he gets a good break, he's in. So he makes a move there. By the looks of this, we're at the 50 meter board on the right-hand side. Lando has made his move. And then on the next slide, we can see from the aerial shot that Lando is now putting his nose ahead of, alongside Max Verstappen. And at this stage, you're going, yeah, he's a little bit far back. But then before he makes the corner, he's made the corner. You know, he's making the corner there. He's staying on the track. And at that point, if I'm Max Verstappen with a 70-odd point lead, I am going, this is where I put Silverstone 2021 into the equation. Max Verstappen has a choice here. You have a massive points lead. If you let Lando go and win here, you're still miles in the championship lead and going to continue to have chances to win Grand Prix. And you still got it in your own hands to be world champion. In 2021 at Silverstone, he had it in his hands to look at Lewis on the inside and go, off you go. I've still got the quicker car. Might still win this race. If I don't, I'm going to finish second. It doesn't matter what Lewis does. I'm still, you know, we wouldn't have had that equal points into the season finale if that happened because Max would have been 18 points clear. Anyway, so there we go. Lando has locked up. And at this stage, on my view, I can completely agree with Max going off there because while Lando is trying to stay on track, Max cannot. You know, there isn't going to be the space you can see there without going across the sausage curb. They don't want to do that in the ground effects cars because it destroys the bottom. So it is around the outside for Max. And as you can see now, they're side by side and Max rejoins in the lead. Now, Wajid, I'm going to ask you your opinion on this. Should this be a position where it looks very similar to the Hulkenberg-Alonso one from the sprint race?
Absolutely.
Which would mean giving Lando a penalty.
No penalty.
But nothing is given at all. And even people are saying Max should have given the position back. I'll lay the floor for you.
I think so. I've got two things. One on the penalty. I think we're in a time where because he was being investigated for the track limits penalty, they weren't going to give him the 5 seconds for essentially running Max off the road. They weren't going to compound the two. It was either going to be the track limits penalty, or they may have given the penalty for this. That's number one.
Yeah.
Number two, he's not ahead of his car is not ahead of Max before they reach the apex of the curb. If anything, he's in line or ever so slightly behind. Even that point, Max's car is ahead.
He should be given room, is what you're
Pardon?
saying.
Pardon?
Even though Max is on the outside, he should be allowed racing room around the outside.
Absolutely, which he's not been done. Lando's overshot the corner. More speed, whatever else. So he's just trying to take push Max off the road, whatever it is. Max is well entitled to come back and be ahead of him. That's my opinion.
Yeah, no, I find it hard with this one because I think, yes, Lando's made the move, and I don't think Hulkenberg's was a penalty. And I think he stayed on track, and I get it. But also, if you're going to give Hulkenberg a penalty, that is very similar. That is so similar, it's almost mirror imaged. And that, for me, I think because Max came on in front, they kind of went, well, it's hard racing, we'll let it go. Because obviously in the sprint, Hulkenberg got out in front of Alonso. So that's probably why the penalty was given for Hulkenberg and not for Lando Norris. So that was clash number 3.
Sorry, we just got a comment saying they hadn't given it. They hadn't. What?
I think they're saying they hadn't given a track limit penalty at that point.
But they were investigating.
Yeah, it was being investigated.
It was being investigated.
I do think it's very much more that, like, if you take the comparison with Hulkenberg in the sprint, Hulkenberg gained the position, Lando did not.
Didn't.
So they kind of went, it's hard racing. Then we'll move on to, back we go, lap 64. So this is kind of it. If that 5 seconds is given earlier, these don't happen, I think is what you're saying. Yeah. This is a thing because
sorry, Darth Sydney, like they may be wise cross, but that's the point I'm also making. If the penalty is given earlier, if penalties are handed out to either of them earlier for their driving or the driving standards, this doesn't happen. I don't. Yeah, that's the point. That is the point I did make earlier.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Sydney was, I think, agreeing with.
Yeah,
it seeming like it.
Yeah, we're both there. We just so we met at the intersection, sort of thing.
Anyway, 64. As you can see, both cars, Lando with DRS open. He's managed to catch back up. Marshall's having a nice little chin wag on the right-hand side there. I apologise for the Haas and Gasly getting in the way of these pictures, but pain in the arse lap cars, aren't they? Blue flag, move out way. Then, as you can see, still there, Max is looking. He's looking in his mirror. He knows Lando is there. So at the 150-metre board, which we'll see from the aerial shots coming up soon, he makes his move. Lando looks to the outside to get the run out of the corner to use the third DRS zone on this circuit. At that point, he's still looking in his mirrors to make sure that Lando has not gone to the inside. At this point, Lando has gone, right, I'm going outside. Pierre Gasly's gone, oh my God, what the hell's going on behind me? Which is surprising because there's cars behind, even overlapping him, there is a car behind an Alpine. The Red Bull is still line astern, and Max is looking straight ahead at this point. I know the comments that's been played about him looking at the corner, but you can see he's looking straight ahead and starting to look at the corner. But he drifts. And this was the excuse that I think it was Vettel gave in Azerbaijan with Lewis Hamilton. With the safety car procedure, and when he ran into him in the side, he took his eyes off the ball for a minute and drifted, which is very easy to do, especially at these speeds. I mean, we probably all do it on the motorway, and we do it at 70 miles an hour. 70 miles an hour, yeah. Okay. Anyway, that's all right. I don't drive at the moment. It's fine. But as you can see, the squeeze is coming on. And at that point there is contact. That's the point of contact between the two rear wheels of the car. Now, I think what happens here as well is Max turns in, obviously knowing there's been contact, but not knowing he has a puncture. Lando going out wide, thinking, I will get the run on him because he's going to run wide. As they turn into the corner, as you can see, obvious damage to Red Bull. And then there's a second collision between the rear tyre and the front wing, meaning Lando would need a front wing. And both cars exit off the track. And as they come back on, both go round the sausage curb. And there's two sides to this one. And I'm sure Wadjid will probably have the side I think he'll have. And I think I've got a slightly different one, I think. But Lando's coming back on. Max is coming down there. And it looks like he's looking across. By now, he would know Lando's there. And definitely by now, he would know Lando's there. So why he hasn't given the space at that stage, I'm not sure. But Wadjid, I'll hold it to you and we'll go through the overhead shots for your opinion kind of
absolutely,
at the same time.
Absolutely. So, as you see, as it states in the rules, the driver ahead can only make one defensive maneuver. Max is off the racing line. He's moved. From a couple of clips earlier, he was on the racing line, and he moves right to defend Lando. That is him defending Lando because he's thinking Lando's going in the inside. Lando then comes back on the outside. You can see Lando's as the driver behind. You can go inside, outside within the extent. As the driver in front, you cannot. As you see here, they are both in two. Max is defending the inside. Lando is on the outside. And if you go to the next clip, please, Dave.
Yeah.
Max is clearly moving into Lando's line for absolutely no reason. He is squeezing him. He can see the cars there in his mirrors if he's using the mirrors. And he goes straight into the side of him. That's essentially where all this incident breaks down, which is Max is overly defending when he has the space of the Netherlands on the right hand side. He decides he wants the tiny little Lando's on where he is, and he drives straight to the side of him. The bit I didn't see is where Lando got the puncture. Because I saw when Max got the puncture. That's when the tire hit the wing. It's Lando's puncture that I was really confused about because as he came down the hill round, then all of a sudden he had the puncture. I don't know where his puncture occurred.
I initially thought it was a front puncture for Lando due to, and let me just find the slide. We'll just have to slide back a little bit. Due to the contact with the front wing here, I thought he picked up a front puncture from the damage from Max, but he hasn't. I completely agree with your thoughts on Matt. He's made the one move. He doesn't need to drift back across. Now, a lot of people have said, hang on, Lando. We saw in the Zhou Guanyu issue that Joe was over on the curb and Daniel Ricciardo come past and squeezed him a bit. And then he had to go out late and that allowed Alonso to run into him. Yes. But the one thing you must know in racing, and a lot of people don't seem to understand, is this curb, that blue bit, that grey bit to the left of it, is not for racing. It's not racetrack. You're not meant to use it. We're just going to quickly run through a few comments that have come in, because we did ask for them. The FAA should give them a group penalty. I'm not sure who you're on about there, but yeah, I might agree with you. You might want to evaluate that a bit larger so we know who you're on about there. Matt Graham, welcome in. Is this the most overrated incident of all time? Possibly. I was going to get onto that in a bit because I think because of social media, because of Mac's history, and because Lando has such a following online, which is weird. I mean, I could put it this way, that if some of the things that are said about Lando are said about a female driver by a male, it would be taken complete opposite direction, and actually be slated and whatever. The bigger move happening before this clip, we've gone through already. You might have missed it, Matt, but we have gone through the first 3 incidents, and personally, my worst one was the first incident where he's moved offline very, very late to defend Lando. And that's why each time you see each incident we've got to, Lando's given more and more space to Max. And we're blowing this up. We're here as a press as such. It's blown up because we think, things are going to kick off. But are they? That's the question. We know with Lewis, he was not going to take any crap. And he was going to give it back as hard as he got it if he could, but within the rules of the regulations. Christian Horner comes out and goes, "Oh, there's what was it? Dive bombing was the word used for Lando's moves." Well, hang on, Christian. We've literally had Max Verstappen is known for a late overtake, which you could refer to it as dive bombing, and he's been utterly praised for it. He's been a lot of his dive bombs, I'll be honest, have been utterly stupid as well. We think we don't want to go there, but we think back to 2021 and Saudi Arabia and things like that. Brazil, there's another one where he dive bombed back at Lewis. Abu Dhabi lap 1, he dive bombed Lewis and forced Lewis to choose whether to stay on the circuit or not. Obviously, whatever happened with Lewis cutting that corner is neither here nor there. He still dive bombed him. So it's a difficult one, especially when Christian Horner's also checking his WhatsApp group at the same time. In terms of the whole incident, it could be nothing.
And sorry, I just also want to add, incidents like this are always overrated or become bigger when the outcome causes the cars to damage or affects racing positions or one retires. If this incident is like every other Max, 95% of Max's incidents where the other driver takes avoiding action to stop the incident, it's not talked about as much. The only reason this isn't, like you said, is being talked about is because effectively the guy who's second in the World Drivers' Championship didn't finish and could have potentially won the race. So I do agree with you, but again, it always becomes inflated and bloated and everything like that because of the outcome rather than the actual incident itself. But on the bright side, DTS Drive to Survive have got their content sorted. When friends become enemies.
Yeah. I mean, this is the one thing. I mean, there's other parts to this, but this isn't the worst part. What we're seeing right here on the picture that was the worst part of the instance. So, what I'm going to ask you all in chat, obviously we'll ask Wajid as well, and myself and people. Sorry, I was meant to click through that. So for me, I think obviously Max's fault, Max's penalty. Was it 10 seconds, not 5 seconds, because it took Lando out the race? Yes. Because if I remember rightly, wasn't it 5 seconds for Nico Hülkenberg for running a driver off the track? So it's almost like the offside rule. There's too many versions of it now. Too many different things. 5 seconds get thrown out for everything. 10 seconds get thrown out for everything. why are we not just going back to the old-fashioned? And now we're going back to the old-fashioned podcast of just the two of us here. Why are we not looking at it and going, right, let's just go back to the old-fashioned stop-and-go penalty? People said it ruined races, but it stopped people doing it. Adding 5 seconds means nothing in the races these days, because especially for the top 8, they're going to still finish 8th, unless you Checo Perez, who gets stuck behind a Haas. Yeah. In the chat, let us know. Do you think, 1, should Lando have got a penalty? 2, should Max have got a penalty? Not in, whether he got one or not doesn't matter. Should he got one because you've got enough room to write on there. You don't have to put 1, 2, or 3. So just whether Max should have got a penalty for anything, Lando should have got a penalty for everything, or are we just being silly because they're friends at the end of the day? Pop it in chat as a comment, and it would be great to see your opinions on that. Wajid, 3 questions, same ones for you.
Lando should have got one for the track limits. Absolutely. Max definitely should have got a penalty for his braking way before we get to the incident. Both of them should have had penalties for separate instances. And sorry, what was your third one? Sorry.
And just whether their friendship, because obviously we had the comment of Lando afterwards.
It's heat of the moment stuff, isn't it? He's come out of the car. He's seen essentially, potentially a 3rd win in a row, completely thrown away by either him, his team, or something that's happened on track. It's just anger, isn't it? Because from what could have been a hat trick of wins, he's got 2 seconds and a nothing. So, I think it's more just anger and frustration. I think Max was a lot calmer in his interview where he said, we'll speak about it away from the track and we're friends and stuff like that. So it's literally just you caught him at the heat of the moment where he was angry.
The question I put, though, and I've looked at the interviews, obviously Christian Horner's, Max Verstappen's very much, we've got to look at the incident, I know Christian came out saying Lando hasn't moved, put himself correctly with all the dive bombs, but, Christian's always been a driver to back his number 1, even if it's against his own number 2. Mark Webber knows about that, which is ironic when Webber's driver finishes 2nd. But we've got a situation here with Lando where he's got two moves he could play. And I'm saying he can play them because the British Grand Prix is up next. And we know the British crowd are very, very passionate about their racing. They come in their droves. I don't care what anybody says. It is one of the best weekends of the Grand Prix series because you do get so many different fans merging together. And I know people say about the toxicity of Team LH and Max Verstappen fans and all that, but I've been there before that, and the British Grand Prix, you could be there in a Ferrari hat standing, you could be a Schumacher fan next to a Mick Hakkinen fan. It wouldn't matter. You could sit there and chat. It wouldn't matter. So does Lando now play this to his advantage? He knows, we all know, we're going to get to Thursday. We'll have the Sky Sports special event on the pit straight, and there'll be boos for Max Verstappen, or Max won't come out. There'll be one or the other, because he knows what's going to happen. He's going to get booed. And I know he doesn't care about that, and he says he doesn't care. But does Lando... He
cares more than you think.
Well, yes, I know he says he doesn't. But with Lewis, he used to go, no, we don't want that. Don't boo. Because he knows automatically they're still going to do it, even if he asks them not to. But he plays the, we don't want that in our sports kind of line. Does Lando play that line? Or does he go, right, it's my home Grand Prix. It's going to be an advantage. Let's play that advantage. And almost G him up with the comments he makes.
No, I don't think so. Because he's come out many times and said, defending Max for dominating the championship and things like that. I don't think he does that. I think if this incident occurs again to the same extent, then it's a different conversation. As this is the first time they've clashed on track, and heat of the moment, stuff like that. And, Max, I also think Max in that because he did essentially extend his lead in the championship. Championship, I already think is over. Mr. Magpie seems to disagree. I don't think he plays that. I don't think he plays that card. Max gets booed. Max gets booed in Britain. Max's reputation in Britain is just that.
Yeah.
Because of what he's done to the drivers he's done it with. So it doesn't matter if anyone says, please don't boo, please cheer, anything like that. Max's reputation is now cemented in Britain. He's a pantomime villain. I think some of the boos are now because it's the thing to do is to boo Max Verstappen, not even because people want to boo him. So, he's just got pantomime villain status, but the problem is it affects him so much. That's what the issue is. I don't understand why it affects him so much.
Yeah. Sydney saying it was probably Max was penalised for the mildest of the 4 incidents, which is, probably about true.
Sorry, there's a comment before, but we're still set.
So Steel Sector saying, honestly, the time penalty in race doesn't do much. 5-10 seconds brought in should be a drive-through stop go. Yeah, I think a drive-through is massively underused in Formula One if you want to stop these incidents. But do F1 want to stop these incidents? I'm not so sure. But no, I think Lando's got a great chance this weekend in Britain. We will get to that in the preview, which probably won't be today because we've been talking for 57 minutes about one bit of a race. So we will move on a little bit, but I do think Lando will play a bit of a game from it if he can. I think McLaren will be very good around there. The only thing I will ask now, because obviously let's end this subject as we can. Do you think we are seeing another incident like this season?
Yep, absolutely.
I completely agree.
Absolutely.
Blind also saying, think of the engagement they got from this one incident. Exactly. I don't think F1 are too fussed on whether things, unless they actually become dangerous. But moving on, finally, the Grand Prix result as itself, a victory for George Russell. Now, we obviously have to mention this. George Russell kept himself quiet, stayed ahead of Lewis early on, dropped back, was just happy to be in 3rd place and take advantage of what happened. He said it on Saturday night. He's just going to sit there and hope they both take each other out. I don't think he probably saw it happening. A really just calm, solid drive by George, even if he did try and get distracted by Toto Wolff's radio.
He did what he had to do. He's been, and in fairness to him, he'd been the quickest Merc in Austria all weekend anyway. So, Lewis didn't overtake him in those opening 2-3 laps or whatever else, and supposedly Lewis got damage to the underside of his car that we don't know. But fair play to George. He was the 3rd quickest driver all week. Well, 4th quickest. In the race, he was the 3rd quickest driver. Did what he had to do. Kept out of danger. Had a big enough gap to Sainz because Sainz was a moving chicane for George. Because if I think that's Oscar Piastri behind for those laps and not Carlos Sainz, we have a new Grand Prix winner. But the Merc scammed a win. The Merc scammed a win in a season that I never thought they were going to get a win. So, fair play.
And at the circuit, I think we said was not Mercedes' circuit.
And it's another new winner at Austria.
Yeah, that's very true. It's the first new winner we've had in about 6-7 years because of Max Leclerc and Lewis were pretty much the only winners.
And Bottas as well.
Oh, Bottas. Oh, yeah. So, we've had a run of winners apart from Verstappen, isn't it? Yeah, that's right. But we could have had a different new winner. I mean, obviously, George Russell, you can lean on like that if you want, but, that is just getting ridiculous now. But I had to use it on thumbnail. Solid drive. I still don't think it's, oh my God, he's destroying Lewis Hamilton. We know Lewis had to let Carlos Sainz through, apparently picked up some damage elsewhere. But George, good drive, solid drive. Just remember, you're still there as a team. And actually, you could have lost this win to Carlos Sainz early on in the race if you had kept fighting Lewis. Piastri's chance. Absolutely solid drive throughout the weekend. Again, in the sprint race, I'm not sure his tyre wear, looking after his tyres properly, worked. And if McLaren want to win in a Drivers' Championship in any kind of way, if they do want to, they can't let sprint races like that happen. You can't let Oscar drive around the outside, attack Max, and then just drop off. You've got to let Lando go in that situation.
When Dave talks about championship, he's talking about next year's championship because there's no championship. No, there's no championship fight this year.
There is.
Like, there's not. It's done. It is done. Right? It's done. It's over. It's over, ladies and gentlemen. It's over. Like, there's no championship fight. If I'm Oscar Piastri, I'm annoyed. I am ridiculously annoyed that I did not win this Grand Prix. He had the pace. He was in a car that was clearly second to first quickest, given what time of day the track was on. He was stuck. He was stuck too long behind Carlos Sainz from that second round of pit stops. If I'm Oscar Piastri, I am so annoyed I did not win in Austria this weekend. This was the chance. When those two took each other out, this was the chance. Whatever happened in qualifying with his lap getting deleted or whatever else, fair enough. Fair enough. But Oscar should have won in Austria.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think he should have won anyway. I think the VSC for Lando's damage, which also a lot of people have picked up on, Perez got a penalty for dragging the car back. Lando drags debris everywhere, no penalty. Yeah, okay.
The thing is, like, you know, I was even shocked it wasn't a full safety car because of where the debris was as well. Because the debris was on the entry of a lot of debris was on the entry of the pit lane, which is, you know, when you come sweeping out the corner. Okay, someone might not have been pitting, but you don't know what was going to happen. So I was shocked it was a VSC and not a full safety car, even when they pulled out the VSC.
Yeah.
No, and that is sorry. And just to add, that's why George got the extra second from as well.
Yeah. No, I do agree with that. But Max didn't. We are going to stay off this subject, but I presume Alif is suggesting whose fault was it in 2021. We're trying not to go back there if we can. So there you go. Same one with Lewis a few years back. I kind of, that's slightly different because that was the final lap of a race. And you couldn't turn around to somebody on the final lap of a race with a 20-second lead to pull over and retire from a race when he could get the car safely around. So I actually don't have a problem with them trying to get to the track. Still set to mathematically, there's still a chance. Also, Red Bull seem to be losing their lead. So seem to have lost their lead. Not sure what upgrades they will have, as I am sure all teams will bring something to Silverstone. I don't think Silverstone will be the place myself, but I'll wait and see.
Sorry, also still sector. My comment isn't based on the cars now. I thought my comment, the whole thing about me and my opinion on the World Championship is Red Bull, the only team that started in Bahrain. For Ferrari and the McLaren, their championship started in Miami, where I think Red Bull had like a 40 point lead or whatever at that point. So that's sort of where my feeling and stuff comes from, which is if the cars had the packages they have now and they brought them into Bahrain, then yeah, well, absolutely we have a world championship. The problem is now is they brought packages too late, where you've given Red Bull an advantage, and now it's a case of there's cars strong enough not only to take points off Max, but weekends like this where Max makes a mistake or Red Bull make a mistake, Ferrari and McLaren aren't picking up the pieces the way sort of Red Bull used to when the Mercedes were making a mistake. And we talked about this on the last podcast, and I'll sort of mention it again now because there's more people here.
Yeah.
McLaren haven't been in a world title fight since 2010 with Lewis and the five world champions competing for a championship. That's the last time they were really in a world title fight. We're sort of 15 years removed from that, where it's totally different, new team, new owner, everything like that. And I don't think this team has shown to me they don't have that ruthless side it takes at the moment to win a world championship. I could be wrong. People could clip me up and we could come back to this at the end of the year. Absolutely. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, no, I do get that. Personally, I think because the McLaren is now the quickest car, I think, overall, I think there's still a chance. I mean, we're looking there now, but the gap is now for 44 out of 37, that's 70, 81 points. 81-point lead for Max Verstappen. Quick maths. Then there's Charles Leclerc, another 6 back. I don't think Charles is in it. I think he's hanging on because I think you'll have Oscar Piastri coming after him very, very shortly. But just in a general scheme of things, I do think we're in a time that we might have a championship. But let's see what happens. I said we'll get to Silverstone and see where everybody sits. I did expect Max to win here. He obviously hasn't, but he has gained some points. I did expect Lando to win the last race. He didn't. And I expect Lando to win in Silverstone. So, spoiler for the preview. This is where now I don't put Lando as winner and everyone jumps on the back. But yeah, so Piastri certainly should have had a chance. One of the best weekends from him. I'm still concerned about his tyre wear. I still think that's a big issue for him. But the other team, we use this title. We haven't even edited it. Ferrari, again, just lacking that spark. Like I say, still in touch in terms of the Drivers' Championship. And we can't deny them on the Constructors' Championship because they're closer than McLaren are. And we're thinking McLaren's in the fight. So what's your view on Ferrari? Are they sort of dead and buried for this season, or are we going to see a bit of a bounce back at some point?
I just think they're wrong. I just think it was the wrong driver involved in the turn 1 incident. Leclerc's been the one that's been the quickest in the Ferrari since Carlos got that sort of bounce back win in Jeddah. Yeah, I just think if it was Leclerc and not, I think if it was Sainz and not Leclerc, I think it's a better result not only for Ferrari, but I also think he's the quicker driver at this. I also think he's the quicker driver at this moment in time. Has Dave frozen again? Dun dun dun. I believe he has. I think he'll be back in a minute. Just to read a couple of your comments. So Steel Sector saying the constructors is still pretty close. Driver's a bit of a runaway, but yeah, Ferrari fumbled again, and absolutely, it's Ferrari all over. It's Ferrari all over again, isn't it? It's the same Ferrari we all know and love. The more things change, the more they stay the same. I do believe there will be weekends where Ferrari will be back, which I was going to get onto. But again, it's teams making mistakes on weekends where the pieces are there to be picked up, and you can really slash at Red Bulls. It's not very often. I mean, I can't remember the last time Red Bull made a mistake in the pit with Max Verstappen. I mean, the one unfortunately that comes closest to the top of my head is at Monza 2021, where they couldn't change the tires quick enough, which obviously led to turn 1 and everything like that. So you have to pick up the pieces when Red Bull are when Red Bull decide to internally combust. So absolutely, in terms of Carlos, I think he's just happy to be there at this moment in time. All that speed and all that spark he had seems to have gone. I really think the sort of rumors for drive and the fact that he doesn't have a drive sorted for next year in a quote unquote top team, I think is really, really starting to get to him. I think is really affecting him. I think it's affecting his ability on the track because, yeah, okay, cool. He was ahead of Lewis, fine, but he didn't go anywhere in the race. He was just sort of there. He was just a driving chicane for most parts of the race. He was really lonely. He was all by himself. As Dave says, he's trying to come back. So, hopefully he'll be here soon, so you don't have to hear me waffling along. But yeah, I'm just really disappointed in the mistakes Ferrari have made because this could have really been a 3-driver championship, a 3-team championship, and yeah, I think they'll probably get a win or two, but Ferrari really, really need to iron out these mistakes if they want to be able to challenge for a world title again. Yes, they've challenged for world titles, but we're coming to, as the song goes, it's been 20 years. We're coming to nearly 20 years since Ferrari last won a driver's world champion with Kimi Raikkonen in 2007. Yes, they've been close, but 20 years at Ferrari, it's an Arsenal level stretch for a team that has a much bigger history than Arsenal for a football reference. So yeah, let's see what happens. I expect they've always done quite well in Silverstone. I actually do expect them to go quite well at Silverstone. So yeah, let's see. And another comment here from Darth Sydney, which he says, to think Max is having to work without a wingman as well as still holding his own. The less said about Checo Perez, the better, to be perfectly honest. Since he's got given that contract, he's gone, well, cool, my life's sorted. He was absolutely nowhere this weekend. To finish behind a Haas, for your penalty to make an extra stop, change tires. I don't know. I can't remember if Max changed the wing or not. I don't think he did. But to make an extra stop, drive 3/4 of a lap on 3 tires, have a 10-second penalty, and still finish 17 seconds ahead is an absolute disgrace. We all know the reason why Checo's in that seat, which is they don't want someone to challenge Max, to compete with Max. They need someone to, essentially hold down the fort. Now, when they were the most dominant car, yeah, absolutely. Amazing, brilliant. You can have a driver like that is going to do absolutely nothing and challenge absolutely nothing. Because you're always so far ahead, you should realistically be. Excuse me. Because you're always going to be so far ahead, it's not. It doesn't affect the constructors or anything like that. Because he's not going to compete with Max and the drivers. But now that we have Ferrari there or thereabouts, McLaren definitely there. Sometimes, the 2 of the last 3 races, in my opinion, they've been the quickest car. And the Mercedes there to pick up the pieces. You can't have a driver finishing behind the Haas of, as my camera shakes, you can't have a driver finish behind a Haas car in a 71-lap race. It's an absolute disgrace. It genuinely is. It's absolutely disgusting. Let's see what happens. I think Dave is of the opinion that there's still a chance Red Bull replace him. I don't see him getting replaced at all. I think he's there. I think Red Bull are happy that there's no one to compete with Max. I also think he makes Max happy by just not being able to compete with him at all. So yeah, let's see what happens. I think is Dave trying to come back? I think he's still trying to come back. His internet has been in and out all day, unfortunately. So, but if you guys, again, any more comments, any more things from the race, please do get involved. Another one from Darcy, which says, next season will be a great season with proper competition. Then we'll reset and we'll get someone in a dominant car again. Unfortunately, this is what always happens, though, isn't it? Like, we saw the end of 2020. We saw the end of those regulations at the end of 2021. All the cars had come close together. You know, we had the McLaren 1-2 we had the McLaren 1-2 at Monza. We had Ocon's win in Hungary. I remember how close the grid got to at some points where I think, you know, the top 10 were within 5-6 tenths of each other, because all the cars eventually get to that point where they're all there or thereabouts. And you're absolutely right. Next season, everyone will be there. Everyone will be close by. You know, Red Bull have that dominant run with Max with, I believe it's like 1571 or something. Some ridiculous statistic. And we may have more surprise winners next season. And then 2026 is going to happen with the smaller cars, the different engines, and yeah, we're good. I hope we're not in the position where we were in 2014 or 2022, where it's one car that's 2 seconds up the road and you're just going, well, you know, there's a good battle for second place, or you only watch the race if that team, whether it's the Audi or if it's the Merc or Ferrari, where that team, you know, the engine decides to spontaneously combust that race, and then you're like, oh, cool, we have a race because the top teams are in it. So I hope it's not like that. But unfortunately, history doesn't show that. I would have got into our race predictions that we did on our preview show. Watch the first corner and find something else to. Yeah, pretty much. Honestly, pretty much. You kind of sort of watched Q3 to see what the qualifying results were. Prep yourself going, oh, cool, it's going to be a really good race. Everyone makes it around turn 1, absolutely fine. And yeah, it was just dead. It's like, cool, I might turn on in the last 3 laps just to make sure I can talk about something. But yeah, as I said, I would have got into our race predictions. We make those predictions every time on our preview shows. And since we started keeping score, I stopped keeping score because last year we were keeping score. Dave's actually done really, really well. We'll still need weather or mistakes to even things up now. I don't think so, because I think because we now actually have 2 or 3 teams that are there with the Red Bull, I think there's more likely to things being mixed up and stuff like that. And yeah, weather does play a part, but I don't think we're at that stage. I think we're at the stage now where I think we're at that sort of 2020 stage where there's cars actually able to sort of compete with the Red Bull. Whether winning the World Championship is totally different, because I believe that's over. But if we enjoy the season race to race to race, I don't think it's the same. As Dave comes back, thank you very much.
Don't know what's going on. So
I was just going through the comments of Darth Sidney, really, who's been a massive help while been my co-pilot while Sidney. Yeah. So without the time mistake, it would have been a procession to the end. Yeah, but that's just Austria. If you look at the last 2 races, if you look at the 2 races in where were we? We were Spain and I forgot what the last 2 races were.
Monaco.
Was it Monaco? Canada and Spain.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you look at Canada and Spain, they weren't, well, Canada was because of the rain. If you look at the last race, it shouldn't have been as processional as it was. It shouldn't have been as processional as it was, and that was a mistake. That was the mistake Lando made going down the hill into turn 1, which effectively cost him that race. Because that should have been a fight. Yeah, this week, yeah, absolutely, it was the mistake. But we'll get races time to time like this. But I think as we go further into the season, I think we are going to see closer racing. But yeah, sorry, I don't know how much you caught of what I said, Dave. To be perfectly honest,
Absolutely none. Because if you had my microphone on, there's a lot of words you would have heard, and they wouldn't have kept us earning money on Twitch or YouTube. If anybody could just let me know, have we been live on Twitch and YouTube throughout? Just let me know.
well,
Apologies for this.
I think we've been alive on Twitch because that's where Sid has been comment. That's where all the comments have been coming from. So
what we'll do is we'll go from here, and obviously this is now going to become a YouTube actual video because I'm going to have to go away and edit it, which is a pain in the ass. But anyway, we'll move on from Ferrari to this. It has to be good. Sorry, terrible pun. Hopefully, I'll stay long enough to talk about it. Nico Hulkenberg. I said in the last show that he was going to get top 5 in the sprint. I was wrong. He could do a whole Grand Prix and get top 6. Brilliant weekend for Haas. Absolutely brilliant. 6th and 8th of the race, sandwiching Sergio Perez. Nico Hulkenberg states that he could not have held them back in that kind of way. So hopefully, hopefully this is a sign of things to come for Haas. But Nico Hulkenberg yet again pulling one out the bag, and K-Mag doing a very good drive as well.
Nice, yes. Absolutely, shout out to them both. 6th and 8th, big points for Haas, and who'd have thought the team that finishes behind the Mercs, the Mercs and McLarens and the Ferraris this week, and the Red Bull this weekend was going to be the Haas. In fact, one of them beat a Red Bull, didn't they?
Yeah, and Nico said he couldn't have lasted another lap, but I'm not too sure on that.
Didn't need to. The race was 71 laps, not 72 laps.
Yeah, I felt like in this podcast it wasn't worth talking about Sergio Perez because we're just getting used to it now. In a few races' time, we may have to discuss who's going to replace him next season, but we'll do that in a few races' time. Haas, brilliant. Really needed that result. Springs them up above Alpine in the championship, who have just got a bit of momentum behind them. Okay, they're only scoring odd points, and this was double-figure points for, I want to say, for
Haas.
For Haas. I can't remember how it quite works out. But
6 gives you 8. 8 gives you 3, so I think that's 11 points in it.
11 points just from this one race, which is going to make it a damn sight harder for somebody like Alpine, especially Williams, Sauber to catch them. And 7th in the championship would be a huge result for Haas. But also, 11 points ahead are RB. Now, in this race, as you can see in the results, we had a very strong drive from Daniel Ricciardo. He managed to pull one back on Yuki Tsunoda well and truly. Slightly slow in qualifying, I believe, overall on the weekend. But when it comes to race day, he finishes 9th. Yuki Tsunoda finishes 14th. Nothing in the words I don't think anybody really noticed Ricciardo coming up to 9th, but a great result for the Australian. Again, is it a false dawn, or do we think Daniel Ricciardo is really putting himself back in with half a chance when he gets the criticism?
No, it's a false dawn. I'm I had him on fraud watch, still on fraud watch. He's not beating the allegations. For those obviously who are newer to the podcast, I had a segment when we started the show called Fraud Watch, where a lot of Dave Savers were on there. And Dave called me out saying, watch all these people prove you wrong. One of them is no longer on the grid. One of them was off the grid for a year. And I don't remember the other 3, but I was pretty accurate for Watch, wasn't it, from what I remember?
Yeah, it was. I still think Schumacher will be back, but we'll see on that.
No. The Schumacher thing was because he was being talked about like a future world champion.
Yeah. So Daniel Ricciardo at that point leaves him just ahead of Ollie Behrman in the championship. Yuki Tsunoda stays 10th, just ahead, 2 points ahead of Lance Stroll and Nico Hulkenberg. So considering Yuki Tsunoda's been praised to the hills with his drives this season, and and Daniel Ricciardo is now only 8 points behind. It does seem like Daniel Moore has a peak and trough kind of thing where Yuki just balances along. So it depends what kind of driver RB are looking for next year,
But
especially considering this shout out this junior team.
But sorry, I also want to say that I think because Yuki's performances generally have been subpar since he's been in Formula One, that this little jump up he's having is like, oh, hello, rather than anything sort of extraordinary.
Hello, Beatster. Welcome in. I hope your stream went well and quick as well. Welcome in. We are actually towards the rear end of the podcast because I don't want my internet to go down yet again. And I am planning to stream later on, but I'm not quite sure it's going to hang on. But we'll see. Yeah, Beats are saying, can Yuki do it consistently? That's a huge question out there for anybody to try and answer. But the next thing, I mean, obviously, Beats is Australian, so Daniel Ricciardo, yeah, okay. We will look, as Wajid says, at our prediction results.
I'm so sorry. Can I just get some water, please?
No, you can do. I've ran off enough times in this podcast with my internet, so we're obviously going to look towards. Yes, you're at the Aston Martin section of the cast. Yes, the rear end. We're going to look at our prediction results and how we got on. Now, as Beats has said a few times when we've been filling the gap, I've seemed to have got some kind of better results since we didn't actually keep score. And so let's have a look at the qualifying predictions we had for this race. There we go. Indeed, we got that went well. I'm just going to find the qualifying results to make sure I've got them 100% correct. So this was for race qualifying, bear in mind, we didn't do sprint predictions. So here we go. Rajid is back in the room just behind. I'm sure you can hear him now. So this is our qualifying predictions. Norris, then I had Leclerc, Verstappen, Piastri, Sainz. Wajid had Norris, Verstappen, Piastri, Leclerc, Russell. The correct result was Verstappen, Norris, Russell, Sainz, Hamilton.
Good job, team. Good job, team.
And you all come to us for opinions. We'll move straight on.
I think I would have had Piastri if he wasn't given the drop.
Yeah.
That's what's annoying me.
And if my aunt had balls, she'd be called me uncle.
Well, in this day and age, he might have also still been your aunt.
Yeah, we're not going there at the moment. We will also have a look at the race before we get cancelled completely. Our race predictions: Norris, Verstappen, Hamilton, Leclerc, Piastri. Norris, Leclerc, Piastri, Leclerc. Oh yeah, that's the one where I put Arthur Leclerc in instead of Verstappen. You had Verstappen in second.
It's supposed to be Verstappen in second.
Yeah. In a whole weekend, I haven't changed that. So the results were George Russell, Oscar Piastri, Carlos Sainz, Hamilton, and then Verstappen, with Arthur Leclerc finishing 21st. It's not gone well, has it?
You had a Mercedes in the top three at least.
Yeah, the wrong one and in the wrong step.
So I had a Mercedes in the top three.
I mean, to be fair, it's the closest thing we've got to a point is my Hulkenberg prediction.
Yep.
I also stated near the back would be Sauber. Well, they finished 16th, 17th, so not, then we go on.
I had surprised the weekend, Alex Albon. Surprised with that big dog. Cheers, mate.
Yeah, and what was your one near the back? That was I
don't remember.
We've already gone back through this to check what it was, and I've completely forgot. But anyway, it doesn't matter because we don't get points for it, so who cares? Beats the saying about the width of a Formula One car. To be fair, we bypassed that at the start of the podcast, and I think we've gone over that ground a bit too much. So if you want to catch up on that, you can go to the start of the podcast when we've finished it and rerun through that, because obviously the viewership would help the channel a lot. We will have a British Grand Prix preview. Not sure when yet. We'll have that discussion in a minute. Because obviously I don't want to be in a position of holding Wajid for ransom. It wouldn't have been an hour and a half podcast. It's my internet that's done it. Blame BT, which is weird because I've got like the best internet around it. Anyway, so that's the situation there. Thank you everybody for joining us. I mean, the numbers have been insane. It's really helped us, and we hope that we will see you again for the podcast.
And to be honest, it's helped me given how Dave's internet has been. So otherwise, you just heard me waffling. So I do appreciate all your comments and getting involved. So I really do appreciate all that.
Yeah, because if it was to one viewer, it would be absolute hell for Wajid sitting there by himself. Not that I've not done this recently. Beats to loves to waffle.
Appreciate it, my friend.
Do we have fruit on it? Is it potato waffle? I don't know. Anyway, Wajid, thank you for joining us and hosting for whatever amount of time my internet went down. Hopefully we have explained to you why the penalties were penalties and why Lando was annoyed, why Max thinks it wasn't a penalty, but why the FAA actually got a couple of things right, but a lot wrong yet again. We might fit a bit into the preview. I've got an idea of because we normally have a news section in the preview, and I'm thinking maybe we'll run through why the FAA could have stopped this years ago and why it's led to this incident. But we'll see what we end up doing. We like to have a bit of a punch bag with that. I will hopefully be live tonight with the soft race for Formula Ford on iRacing. If I'm not, it'll be on the YouTube channel. Just depends what that sodding internet behind the screen does. If not, I'll be live probably before 6 o'clock. Let's put it that way. Probably around 5:30ish, because I need to give myself a break and make sure this internet's going to work. Wajid, thank you for joining us as always.
Thank you for having me as always, my friend.
Follow that way. Yeah, we got it. There he is on Instagram, Burnt Out Travels. Follow Wajid at any point. And if anybody would like to come onto the podcast, because I know there's a lot of people out there who are interested, feel free to get in touch with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Please do.
We want some opinions, don't we?
No, I love to hear you guys' opinions in the chat. It's been really nice for you guys getting involved, hearing your opinions. a couple of one or two disagreements with the chat and everything like that, but it's been
yeah.
But that's what this podcast is all about. That's what it's all for. So I really appreciate everyone that's been involved today, and I'd love to have any of you actually on the show. So it could get a bit more fiery.
Also, to say this, because I've obviously mentioned it in Discord, so if you want to come and join, that's fine. We just ask that you have a camera and a microphone or of some kind. It can be on your headset. As long as we can hear you clearly, that's absolutely fine. The camera thing, it looks better when you're all on camera and you can talk. But just be sensible as well, because you may hate a driver, but we have to be fair on this podcast with everybody. And if we call an idiot, he's an idiot. But
let's not call the entire nation.
Yes, let's not do a Jeremy Clarkson Mexico or Argentina thing, or America or France, or Clarkson's not like many places, is it?
I mean, it's already slightly difficult for me to travel given my complexion. I don't need to make it more difficult.
Okay, yeah. I mean, to be fair,
I'm a Yorkshireman.
Wadge is the Yorkshireman, so you might get on well. And if you just look out your window, Sydney and Wedges, you might see Postman Pat going past the stone wall. So trolley. Again, if you've got any comments, if you want to get in touch with me, Instagram and Twitter and Twitch and YouTube and whatever else. Hopefully you'll see me back out on the road with Alpha Live version shortly. So we'll have more stuff about that as well. Beats to yes, we're not going to comment on you being Aussie because just, we could very much say Aussies are Brits, just we didn't want them. Anyway, not true. Anyway, before we get completely cancelled on this podcast, I would like to thank you all for being here. Hopefully we've cleared up some of your questions from the from the Grand Prix as a whole, and you will join us very soon again for the podcast. Once I've edited all this, we'll let you know when it will be. See you all soon.